All right, welcome back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. TJ Pittinger, Cole Thompson, Tom Hannifan, back at our regularly scheduled time, Monday at noon, maybe a few minutes late, but appreciate those that are already in here watching and those that will tune in today. If you're watching this on replay because you didn't catch us live, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell. That way you know when we go live. We'll be back on Wednesday at noon to talk with you guys about some of the weekend's games upcoming. But boys, we'll jump right into it. Not the week that we thought it would happen, but it did end up happening. Brian Kelly out at LSU. Cole, I will just let you get fired up and going.
This was expected for a lot of different reasons. Now, I will say when I heard this, I was absolutely flabbergasted on the way that it happened. But still, you get embarrassed by Texas A&M on Saturday night. You make no second half adjustments, and there are things that the university is asking. Well, let me phrase that. Not asking, demanding you to do. And you say, no, I'm the head coach. Okay, pretty good way to have a one-way ticket to unemployment and back on the market for any school to be able to go grab you. And I will say this. I think that Brian Kelly is going to land a job this offseason. He's too good of a coach in the natural spotlight to where it won't be LSU. It may not end up being at a major institution like even Penn State, but he will land a job this offseason. Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU was brought down to three main elements that constantly shot himself in the foot. The first one was, and I can just attest this because of what has been the status of LSU. Brian Kelly never respected the L in LSU, which stands for Louisiana. That is what it takes to be able to be the head coach at LSU. You have to embrace what is the state. You have to embrace what is the culture. You have to embrace what are the certain criteria that are necessary to be able to win there. And when you do all those things and you do so at a high-end level, folks, let me make something abundantly clear. It can be the best job in college football. I have been on record saying this multiple times. I truly believe that when it is run properly, it is the best job in college football. For one main reason. You don't have to worry about anyone else in your backyard taking your players. When you go down to the state of Florida, you got to worry about Miami. You got to worry about Florida State. You got to worry about Florida going ahead and taking names. You go down to Alabama. Some kids are growing up saying War Eagles. Some kids growing up saying Roll Tide. You go out to California, USC, Cal potentially, Stanford. You also got to throw in UCLA. Also, some other schools up north in the Pacific Northwest. Texas is that way. Gig 'em, hook 'em, sick 'em, go Frogs. All of it. When you're at LSU, it's LSU. That is what it is. Kids grow up dying to play for the purple and gold. They would love nothing more than to run out of the tunnel at Death Valley on a Saturday night as the sun sets in the western sky. They want to represent their state. And a lot of people don't know this. But LSU kids, they don't commit to a coach. They commit to the program. It's one of the very few places in all of college football that you will not see a lot of turnover because of the kids are there to play for their school because it's their state university. And Brian Kelly never wanted to embrace that. Brian Kelly never wanted to do things that way. Brian Kelly never wanted to handle being just in charge of the state of Louisiana. Instead, he looked down at Louisiana like most people from the North and like most people in the public eye do and say, I've done things out in the Northeastern region. I'm going to change the culture down here. Automatic failure. A place like Louisiana State University can see through the lies, and the second that you go ahead and try to pull the wool over it, they ban you for life. They want nothing to do with you, and they make sure that you are never a customer welcome there. When they say bless your heart, it is the ultimate double bird screw you. That is what they mean down there. So Brian Kelly failed at that standpoint. Brian Kelly also failed to be able to understand what a job like LSU requires. It is a premier job in college football. It is a job that is tirelessly, unrelentingly, and unforgiving location. And unfortunately, that means you have to spend more hours in a day and more hours in a year building LSU up to the highest level. And Brian Kelly didn't want to do that. Brian Kelly was reportedly, according to people that I spoke to, during the bye week after losing to Ole Miss, was on a beach. Didn't want to be around the program. Didn't want to go ahead and try to fix the problems. He didn't really build relationships with a lot of the players and a lot of the coaches. He was kind of told, oh, they're joining your staff and then, they're a part of the team. And then he just said, okay, well, we'll figure it out that way. He was so interested in LSU because of the money assets of things. But the only person that Brian Kelly cared about was the B and the K in his name and how it could elevate him by winning at this place into the new status of being one of the elite coaches in college football. And the third thing that was really important that failed Brian Kelly never took ownership. Brian Kelly lined up a slew of coaches that he said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw you under the bus and 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 you under the bus. That way, when they hit all the speed bumps and take you out, it takes a while for them to get to me. And you could see that in every single game. It was the same thing every single Saturday. Stop me if you've heard this before, TJ and Tom. Brian Kelly and LSU give up a big play. And he takes down the headset and he goes, "Hey, Blake Baker, what the bleep was that?" They give up a big punt return touchdown, going over your special teams coordinator. "What the bleep was that?" That's a play that's going to get you fired. Joe Sloan, "Oh, bad offensive execution." What the bleep was that? So your job was to say, "Oh, I don't know what's going on." Is that your job? Just to continuously say, "What the hell was that?" You hear the calls. You're the head coach. You can make the audibles. You can make the switches. You didn't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to take all the credit, but none of the blame. And at a place like LSU, the head coach is the face of the program. It's again like Alabama. It's again like Texas. It's again like Ohio State. There are certain names that you are going to know because of what their legacy is and what they've been able to accomplish as part of the program as a student athlete. The head coach is the face of the program. You didn't want to be the face of the program. You just wanted all of the glory. You just wanted to make sure that everything was coming that was there. That was it. And that's where you have it. LSU is a premier destination. LSU is a place that you view as a top-tier job in college football. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's what it is. And if you do not want to put in all of the resources, then guess what happens? You get shown the door. You weren't shown the door because you went 34-14. You weren't shown the door because if you had 3 losses to top 10 teams. You weren't. You were shown the door because if you didn't want to be a part of what was LSU. And the next coach that you bring on in has to be that. And I don't know who you're going to bring in on that standpoint. Could be Ole Miss. I mean, could be Lane Kiffin. Could be Marcus Freeman. Could make a phone call to Nick Saban. I don't think that you can't do that. You can do all those things. Doesn't really matter. That's just what it is. You got to make sure the next guy that comes on in. And Scott Woodward, I don't think is making the hire. Because Scott Woodward is responsible for 2 of the biggest buyouts in college football history. That's where you are.
This didn't feel like a fit from the very beginning. I think that's been very clear for college football fans. From the second Brian Kelly got hired, to him all of a sudden having an accent, to the atrocious spinny recruiting table thing where he's throwing up the L and he's this, whatever. It just never felt like a guy who understood the state and understood the level of competition within the SEC. I think he wanted to boast about being a guy who could hack it at the SEC level without actually having done it as a head coach. The amazing thing, I think this will go down as some teams where the talent that was squandered was pretty surprising, pretty incredible. Jaden Daniels was a Heisman Trophy winner not a handful of years ago. People were expecting Garrett Nussmeier to follow suit and be a guy who was going to be a number 1 overall draft pick. His decline has been incredible, whether you pin that all on Brian Kelly or other elements of this team. I know there's elements of the talent on the offense that we talked about all season long. There's just deficiencies there. But at the same time, you look on the defensive side of the ball, and it's been like eerily similar to what Florida has had. And defensively, they've been able to hold up for parts of the year, but just nobody brought it all together, unfortunately. So this never felt like Brian Kelly's destination. It just felt like another place for him to go. And the thing I'm looking at now in this coaching carousel, and I know we're going to get into Lane Kiffin, and he's the belle of the ball, and we're going to talk about Steve Sarkisian. Fit is so important in this day and age. And fit, I think people ignore when you see a person's win-loss record, and fit gets thrown away when money is thrown on the table and it's, oh, it's so much money, I'm just going to take it, that sort of thing. But we've talked about, James Franklin as a, for instance, fit in the SEC, even though he's been there within Vanderbilt, his fit in the modern SEC. How many Florida fans are craving James Franklin? How many LSU fans are craving James Franklin? Because he doesn't fit those cultures. He fits a Virginia Tech better than he fits some of these other places. Did anybody really feel like Brian Kelly fit LSU? And I think that's the amazing thing about Lane Kiffin right now, is that he's kind of whatever you want him to be. Like, everybody's in love with him right now, and everybody can make a reason why Lane Kiffin would fit here and fit there within the SEC and nationally. So I think that's something these coaches have to think about. And I am curious, TJ, I want to see what you think on this. At what point do these colleges and these athletic directors, administrations, conferences start to huddle up about the buyouts? The amount of money that's been shelled out already this year is north of $167 million in terms of buyout money for coaches to not coach. It's not sustainable with the way that these businesses of college football are headed.
Real fast before TJ, before you just go on real fast, I had to bring this guy up. Antonio in the comment section going, Scott wasn't responsible for the extension. Yes, he was. Scott Woodward was responsible for the extension of Jimbo Fisher at College Station. Because if they want to hire him at LSU to be the replacement for Ed Orgeron, that extension doesn't happen if Scott Woodward doesn't put in the ear or put in the earworm that Texas A&M is going to lose their head coach. That's what you mean by he was responsible for it. Again, it's not his fault that A&M decided to go ahead and bite the bullet on that standpoint, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Antonio. If there's not a phone call made over to the agency of one Jimbo Fisher, then that extension doesn't happen for Texas A&M. So Scott Woodward is responsible for that.
On the buyout specifically, I mean, Tom, you would think that eventually the bubble would burst, but like, how does it happen? Who's going to be the first school? Because it's always been the haves and have-nots, right? We're going to talk about Sark in a minute. But like Sark leaves for the NFL, which I don't think happens, but we'll talk about it in a few. You think Texas is going to be the first one to step up and not do this? You know, like it's already been reported like what UF is looking to offer Lane, and they watched their biggest rival. They just had to dole out $20 million to Napier, half of that due up front. They're gonna watch Florida State have to pay 50 something to Norvell. And they're reportedly looking at making Lane the highest paid coach in college football right now. You think if, you know, and again, maybe LSU beats that, maybe they don't, maybe Ole Miss beats it to keep him. I would doubt that one. But like Sark leaves for the NFL and they're about to do this. They're about to make whatever Lane gets paid wherever he goes even smaller. So who's going to be the first school that does this? And who's going to be the first candidate that says, yep, I'll take a less friendly deal than every other coach in this country has. So I don't know. And I'm not wishing this, you know, but like, yeah, maybe a Sexton has to die for like this to stop happening. Right. I'm not wishing that. I don't know. But like, we blame him. Like the next big agent's not going to do this, you know, like everybody else isn't negotiating from the same.
You're doing your job. That's what you're doing as an agent.
I don't know if and when and how it ever starts to turn the tide. Like you would almost need like Greg Sankey to come in and say, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti to come in and say like, hey, we're putting a cap on, and you just can't, that's not going to happen. Like, I don't understand how it's ever going to revert backwards. You know, the NFL contracts are getting pretty ridiculous too, but nothing like what we're seeing right now, you know, where it just is this, and you know why? Because in the NFL, the coaching does matter and coaching does make a difference, but it's also the highest, like it's the highest, you know, place you can get. And so like, you don't have to keep guys away from the, like, where are they going to go if they can't coach in the NFL? Right. Like, and so college is I'd like it to happen. Right. Like, but how would you even do it? If you were Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, and you were going to say like, hey guys, we got to put a cap on this. Like you can't pay more than $10 million a year, which first of all, you can't even do that. But second of all, what do you do with the guys that are grandfathered in? What do you do if you're an ACC school may not agree to that. They may pay $12 million a year. And so does that make it more? So I don't know, man. Like we all know that that's the answer, like that we need to stop doing this, but there's no realistic path for that to happen. And you mentioned like what the buyouts, it's going to be $250 million by the time this year is over, because what happens with Freeze? What happens with Norvell? What happens with Stoops? What happens with Beamer? Like there's a lot of different things that could go down that could make this even more, right? And so, and I don't think the end is anywhere in sight. Florida or LSU or somebody's going to pay Lane an astronomical amount of money, and it's just going to continue to billow up.
Well, let's move on over then to the Lane situation, because I'll be completely honest, this is where things get really, really, really interesting from the standpoint of, I was one to say on multiple occasions, if you turn down Florida, it wouldn't shock me. If you think that what you currently have at Ole Miss is a good enough job where you're going to get the buy-in, you're going to get more revenue distribution. You know that you're going to be able to continuously build up recruiting. You're going to continuously be able to build up transfer portal numbers and meet realistic expectations. You can turn it down, and it wouldn't shock me. I don't think you can turn down LSU. I personally think LSU is one of the top 6 jobs in the country to where you get the phone call, you better have a damn good excuse not to turn it down. And even still, I don't think that's a good enough excuse. I don't think that there is one. It's one of those premier locations to where if it's run right, it's run by the people who are going to put the things in the right position. It's very easy to say this is a top tier, if not the top tier job in the country. And Lane's going to get an offer. Lane is absolutely, I think, going to have to get an offer because whether or not we want to say Scott Woodward is the one making the hire or the governor of Louisiana is making the hire, they want results and they're going to swing for the big guy. That's what it is. They just simply are. My question is if you don't get Lane, and let's say Lane does pick Florida, or better yet, let's just say that Lane doesn't leave Ole Miss. He likes Oxford. He wants to stay there for the long term. There's 2 things that we're going to have to ask. Number one, what is the job that you have to wonder about with Lane Kiffin moving forward? Because you turned on a job in this cycle with how many opportunities are going to be on open. What are you waiting for? Alabama? Because that would be it, I think, at this standpoint. So Lane's off the conversation from here on out for the rest of the time. Number 2, where do you go next? What is the next move for both schools? With Florida, you may at least have an Eli Drinkwitz conversation, a Brent Key, a Jeff Brom. LSU's a lot more challenging. I mean, like, this is one where you say, Marcus Freeman, whether or not you don't want to leave Notre Dame, you take the phone call if it at least comes in. You have to take the phone call. Nick Saban, I guarantee you is not going to be back in coaching anytime soon. I'll just say that right now. But what if they throw you a ridiculous number? You were the reason why this program turned into what it is now. You were the reason why this program has turned into, at least in my opinion, the standard of what is expected on Baton Rouge. You have unfinished business. There are people out there that believe LSU would be Alabama if Nick Saban never left for Miami.
So what, Summerall? Would you look there? In-state, but do you want to go group of 5?
I can tell you from the conversations that I've had with people over the last 24 hours, John Summerall would be a perfect candidate if he wasn't at Tulane. Because the last thing that you're ever going to see from the LSU faithful is go after little brother Tulane's head coach.
Yeah.
They think they're better than
with Napier 4 years ago. Like they weren't going to do that.
That was it. They just constantly said they weren't going to do it. You don't go little brother. You swing big at LSU. So then what is the swing big? Clark, and let me bring this up. There's a negative for every single opportunity and person out there that could work. Clark Lee. Look at what he's doing at Vanderbilt right now. Okay, look at what he did with Vanderbilt before Diego Pavia, Tim Beck, and Jerry Kill got there. So you can wonder about that. Eli Drinkwitz. Eli Drinkwitz is at a program that has had some sustainability over the last few years. Okay, but look at his numbers before he hired Kirby Moore. And we also know that he is not very much a we're going to play nice in the sandbox type of coach. Do you want that guy? James Franklin, he's available. James Franklin and Brian Kelly at this point are the exact same coach. Like you literally are just getting rid of one coach that can't win a big game to bring in another coach that can't win a big game. John Summerall, he's at Tulane. You don't think that you want to go ever make that type of move. You look at Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom is a program developer. His system works everywhere until it doesn't work with you. Brent Key knows the SEC. He was an offensive line coach underneath Nick Saban. He does a good job recruiting, good job of developing talent. But he also didn't have success until this past year in the ACC to where we were talking about them as a prominent team. That's where it is. So you got to ask yourself, what are some things that we can look at? Kenny Dillingham, another one that is being thrown out there right now. Kenny Dillingham is a guy who absolutely, I think, could be able to win in today's day and age because of the youthfulness and the offensive approach. But do you believe that he would ever leave a place like Arizona State that's his alma mater? And also, do you think that he would be able to handle the daily duties of being in the SEC? Because we've seen good coaches come on in and they failed immediately. So there's so many names you can just throw out there that say, absolutely slam dunk move if we don't get Lane Kiffin. And then you poke a hole in it and it's like, I don't even want to consider this guy to begin with.
Tom, do you have thoughts on just complete outsider, right? Not an FSU guy, not an SEC guy. Listen, I think this is pretty clear. I know what Cole's answer will be too, because I've seen him talk about it. But just if Lane, like objectively, the LSU job is better than the Florida job. And I know that doesn't make the Florida people happy. It just is what it is. Like, just stop arguing about this. And I get it. I'll argue that the FSU job is better than the UF job because I'm a homer. But like, I know in my heart of hearts what the truth is. Why would he pick Florida over LSU? What would be the reasoning there? If that is the decision he makes, why would he pick Florida? I want to get Cole's thoughts on that too, but just.
I think Florida, if you pick that over LSU, you're choosing the benefit of time. If you take the LSU job, it's a shorter clock in that their expectation is for you to win a national championship and win it quick. I don't think Florida is reasonably expecting, I don't think they're expecting coming into this season that they're going to win a national championship. I think there's a reasonable approach to what they will actually put on the field in Gainesville in the next 4 years. I don't think anybody's assuming they're going to win a national title in the next 4 years. I think they're hoping they make it into the college football playoff quickly within a year, maybe 2 years. So I think the expectations are just slightly lower. And that's not a bad thing. That's just being realistic about what your program is and your timeline and what assets you have available to you. But then I always come back to this, man. What constitutes a good job? What constitutes the best job? It's in the eye of the beholder. Sure. I'm of the opinion the best job in college football is Notre Dame because they don't exist within a conference and they're a major blue blood brand. They can do whatever they want. They have more money than everybody. Why would you leave? Maybe you don't like the weather or the town or whatever. Everybody has a different reason. Lane Kiffin had to hold a meeting with his own players to talk about, well, the Florida job. So is he going to have to hold a meeting now about the LSU job? Does he get tired of that? Does Ole Miss get tired of that to the point where they're like, hey, Lane, we love you. Oxford, he's been on record, has been good for him, his family, his mental health, his evolution as a human being. Like, Lane might stay in Oxford for a long time. So what's the number? What do we have to do to put this to bed? Because he is the belle of the ball right now. If the Texas job comes open, everybody's going to talk about Lane Kiffin for the Texas job as well. So I don't know. I struggle with these, like, yes, like the brand, but like if you're really to break it down in terms of facilities, the town, the state, the NIL, the tax benefits, like all these little things, I feel like it becomes negligible. And you have to look at the person at the end of the day. Lane Kiffin, I think, realizes he can call his shot for anywhere in the country, but he's in a situation where he's building something in his own image at Ole Miss. And I don't know if he'll ever win a national championship at Ole Miss, but I think he's going to have a much longer grace period if he just stays in Oxford than if he goes to Gainesville, if he goes to Baton Rouge, if he goes to Austin, because then it's a clock. Then it's, okay, you got to go now. Whereas in Oxford, he could stay forever. And let's be honest, I'm a Penn State guy. Just got done seeing James Franklin, most of his family, most of his assistant coaches stick around there for the better part of 12 years. That's the bottom line. Like, what a lot of these coaches look for is stability.
Cole, same question. Just why would he pick Florida over LSU and maybe take the Florida offers $2 million more a year, off the table, right? Like, that would be a pretty clear answer.
Couple reasons. Let's start off with the fact that his dad is from the Florida ties, Tampa, very important to his heart. Layla went, one of his first dates was with Layla in Gainesville. That's the pride of his life. His favorite coach of all time and somebody that he models his game after is Steve Spurrier. To be able to go ahead back down there with a visor and take over for the head ball coach is really, really detrimental. But I think there's a few more things you could throw on in. Lane Kiffin at this point, being the belle of the ball, gets to kind of have a say on whatever he wants. And then he gets to bring that offer to the next athletic director and the next athletic director while making a decision. Scott Woodward doesn't want to do this. Keith Carter doesn't want to do this. Scott Strickland, do you want to do this? Because that may be the deciding factor. I have all the immunities to be able to put myself in this position. I think the other part is LSU shouldn't take a while to rebuild. LSU shouldn't be in a position because of how much money they have, what we know about the revenue distribution, because of it is the only state school, because of how many people want to see LSU become successful. They may end up being able to hit reset and be in the conversation a year from now for a college football playoff bid. I want you to look at Florida's roster and tell me that there are not enough pieces already in play to where if you tweak a few things, you bring in a few transfers, and you land a couple of players that weren't looking at Florida because of Billy Napier's status that now could look at it because of Lane Kiffin's on the show, they may say, hey, we're right back in the college football playoff hunt next year. I mean, they have 2 wide receivers in Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown that if they hit the portal, they are going to be prime rib type of delicacies that people are going to salivate on over. Jaden Baugh is a running back that if you throw on the portal, maybe a top 5 name regardless of position. They have some defensive talent. They have some names that are currently a part of the upcoming recruiting class that would all end up costing millions in NIL. And they just need to be better developed. And you also have a quarterback that if you truly do think is going to be able to meet the expectations that were preset for him coming out of high school, but he just wasn't properly coached, Lane's worked with quarterbacks for years. Lane's developed them into being first-round picks. He ends up turning DJ Lagway into a Heisman Trophy finalist. Florida's right in the hunt for a national championship. So Florida does have some enticing pieces already in the works that would say, you bring in the right coach, we are right in the hunt for a college football playoff bid. That's it. That's what this comes down to. I also think that knowing that his son Knox could be able to have maybe a few more looks when it comes to high school recruiting would be really important up there. Landry, if she wants to move out to Florida afterwards, would be really important for him out there. All things that could work. But they also could work in Louisiana. And Louisiana, I'll tell you what, if you truly know the type of people that are out there and not just the stories that you hear online, salt of the earth individuals. They truly, truly, truly care about people down there. And I think that's a good selling point for him as well. They would make sure that he would not be under so much stress and they wouldn't put him in a position to where, oh, you got to go ahead and go out drinking and partying and have some fun and be able to, shake hands, kiss. They would let him be the exact same coach. But at the same time, Lane could also look at this from a legacy standpoint. And you look at Florida and you look at LSU. With LSU, you are a name until you're not. You are a name that is just going to be a part of the program until further notice. Florida, you're a name until you're not. They don't care about you afterwards. They don't care about you if you don't win. If Lane continues to be on the pathway where he is at Ole Miss, in 20 years from now, they will name Vaught Hemingway Stadium Kiffin Field at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. There will be a statue of him outside of the premises for the end all of time. Multiple buildings will be named after him. Multiple street names will be named after him. There will be a day that they probably celebrate in the state called the Lane Kiffin Day. I mean, that's what we're talking about of what you have that doesn't have those things there. And the other thing that's really important here is that I think that Ole Miss is going to the college football playoff. Is LSU going to wait that long until he is eliminated to make the call? So that's just something that we're going to have to talk about.
It's a great point. And I was talking with somebody about it earlier this morning. Right now, they're ranked 7th. And I know the CFP rankings come out tomorrow night, so we'll have a little bit better idea. They have the 4th best odds to win the SEC at this point because of the tiebreaker with Georgia. They're, I don't want to say they're unlikely to make it, but most likely not making it. Right now, things can get weird. This last month, we know what November is like. I think they have a really good chance to finish 11-1 because of who they play. What do they have left on the schedule? Florida should win that at home. South Carolina should win that at home. They play a nobody, and then they play Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. That is on the road. Things could get weird, but they've got a great chance to finish 11-1. They go 11-1 and don't make the SEC championship. I think they're the 5 seed. Just look at who's around them and look at how you expect things to play out. If they're the 5 seed, they probably play Memphis or USF or a team like that.
They play the
Oxford. So they don't get the bye, but you're almost sure that Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss are going to be playing into 2026. And if they play into 2026 because of the way the college football playoff calendar goes, will either of those schools in Gainesville or Baton Rouge wait until 2026 to make their hire? If they haven't made a hire by that point, it's the worst kept secret in college football. But what if he wins that one? What if they win the second game as a favorite against whoever what would that be at that point? I guess that's the semifinal, right? So they may not be the favorite. They might be playing, but they might get Indiana, right? And not to crap on them, right? I'm not saying that Indiana can win that one game, but they might win that one too. So that is a big factor. If they end up with the 5 or 6 seed, which seems like right now, that's what they're probably destined for.
Very possible. Very, very possible.
They are playing into October. I'm still in October, clearly. They're playing into January or at the worst, December 31st, right? So I don't know if either one of these teams can wait for that. I think the best thing that would have happened for these two teams that want him right now would have been for them to lose to Oklahoma, which they didn't do. But I think that is college football is weird. They could drop to Florida, they could drop the Egg Bowl and be out of it. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's a really good chance they don't, and that they're playing well into the end of December.
Oh, dude, there is. I'll be completely real. There are probably conversations going on behind closed doors that they're trying to get verbal agreements done. That, hey, Lane, regardless of what happens to you, you're coming to Florida. Lane, whatever happens to you, you're coming to LSU. They have to be going on. But at the same time, what if Lane is still saying, I got to wait. I got to wait until I figure all these things out. I got to wait until we figure out what is our standing. Are they going to sit around? You got recruits. You got the transfer portal opening up later. You have to get people signed on the dotted line, and you don't know where your head coach is. It becomes an issue. The difference, though, is, in my opinion, if you are Florida, I think that there is a way to pivot to where you can still sell this as a very good hire if it's not Lane Kiffin. I don't know if you can do that at LSU.
I agree with that.
I think with LSU, and this is where, again, I have a lot of Florida fans. I have a lot of Ole Miss fans. I feel like that I'm going to be tarred and feathered if I go to any one of the cities at this point because I'm pissing you off on Twitter. I don't know if Lane Kiffin can say no. But I can also tell you that the way to make sure that Lane Kiffin says no is you tell him he's got to leave before the playoff is over, or you got to decide right now that before you even begin the playoff, you're coming to LSU afterwards. If he says no, I don't know if you're going to find better. Like, I'm telling you, with Florida, I'd come up with 5 or 6 names I think would be really, really good options. It feels Lane or bust. It feels Lane or bust at Baton Rouge. I will say I did see a name earlier, Kelvin Shepard, the defense coordinator for the Detroit Lions right now. He's killing it up there. I don't hate that. I don't think that would sell, even though he is a homegrown talent. I just don't.
What about Rhett Lashley?
To LSU? No. Not out. He just lost to Wake Forest. They're not going to buy into that.
GJ Kinney. Goalish. Brian Hartline is somebody who's popped up as a Penn State candidate.
I'll tell you what, Tom. This was a really interesting tweet I saw from Andy Staples of On3 earlier today. The 3 of the 5 best coaches currently in college football, I think most would say, is Dan Lanning, is Kirby Smart, and is Ryan Day. Every one of them was a coordinator before they got the job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you would ever see LSU go the coordinator route. But if you look at Will Stein, Brian Hartline, Glenn Schumann, they all at one point were Kirby. They all at one point were Lanning. They all at one point were Ryan Day. You guys are having those conversations. You do. And there's going to be a lot of people who also look at Kirby Moore, another one. Yeah, my apologies if I completely spaced on him. They all had to get their start somewhere. I guess LSU, but at the same time, guys, what if you hit? What if you just hit? It ends up being the biggest blessing in disguise, and eventually you'll be able to go ahead and put yourself in a position to where you got him for a cheap bargain that now is going to cost you a lot of money, but usually that money that you spent probably helped him build a team that was sustainable. I personally don't hate the idea of bringing in a coordinator. I don't. I know LSU will not accept it.
All right, just really quick. This has nothing to do with the show, but shout out to On3 and Rivals because LSU just got a flip commit, and look at the picture they used for Kervin Johnson here. We don't talk any recruiting on here. This is just like in the TJ Pittinger level world of pettiness. This is like, I just couldn't love this anymore. And I checked to make sure it was the real account. It was tweeted 25 minutes ago. They know what they're doing over there. And my gosh, shout out to those people. I actually met Jack Terry last week, who does a lot of their social for On3. I'd assume he does it for Rivals too. Just phenomenal work there on that. It just could not be any better. So shout out to them for, that's not paid or anything. They just get a shout out for being petty. What is paid? Go to the Sleeper app right now and how about that for a transition? Go to the Sleeper app right now and get a free $20 play by using our code CFA. You also get a 100% match up to $100. We will play the more or less game because there will be picks on there this week that we can pick 2 or more of our favorite picks and pair that together to make some money together. So again, if you don't want to deposit, you have like 4 days left to go use our code CFA for a free $20 entry on the Sleeper app. Let's go to the Big Ten for a little while. We've been a lot of SEC focus this morning.
Yeah, let's talk about the Big Ten.
The Big Ten, Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon feel like a pretty clear-cut top three, although Iowa and Michigan have the same conference record as the Ducks, so I guess maybe we won't exclude them just yet. But in the rankings, it is Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon that look like they're relatively safe for a CFP spot. Outside of that, the Big Ten's fourth best team, Tom, a lot to pick from here. Well, no, I guess really just three teams. Iowa, Michigan, USC. I guess Nebraska could sneak back up in there if they went out. There are other possibilities. But is the Big Ten getting a fourth team in? What's the situation here?
Cole's face. What is that, Cole?
You're forgetting the most important one.
Which one?
Washington.
Oh, Washington. Yeah, Washington's there too at 3-2. Sorry,
God,
they're a
the
little
Red had a
around
snapshot of the
tiebreakers.
Big Ten, quite
Yeah, that's
literally.
fair.
At this point.
That's fair. No, but I am also with TJ and that it feels like it's a 3-team race
It is.
at this point in time. So no disrespect to Washington. I think Washington can still make a run of it, but it's the irony of this entire situation. The fourth best team in the Big Ten isn't even ranked. It's Iowa. Michigan lost to USC head-to-head, so I'm already counting Michigan out there, #8-4. You will get the answer to this game on November 15th because Iowa goes to USC, so that's going to be interesting. Iowa, outside of Ohio State, is probably the best defense in the Big Ten, and that's no disrespect to what Indiana has done. Indiana's pitched shutouts or damn near shutouts just about this entire season and beaten people to sleep, I think demoralizing them with the way they play offense into the second half. This Iowa team is as Kirk Ferentz as it gets. They play outstanding defense, top 10 defense statistically, probably the best offensive line in the sport right now. Mark Gronowski is wildly inconsistent as a passer, but they're self-aware enough to limit his attempts to about 15 a game, and his ability to scramble and make something happen in either design or improvised QB run, I think just makes them dangerous. They run the ball, Iowa, well. Like, they do everything that you expect of an Iowa team. And the truth of the matter is, like, they don't have the overwhelming talent that they've had of years past. If anything, like along the offensive line, yes, this is just a really smart, intelligent, physical football team. And they're not caught up in the window dressing and the glitz and glam of the NIL era. Like, these are just a bunch of Iowa dudes who want to punch you in the mouth. Phil Parker's done an awesome job once again with this defense. So as this season wears on and you're looking forward to the college football playoff, do you really want to play a smash mouth game for 4 quarters against the Iowa Hawkeyes? I think Michigan still is going to have a chance to sneak in. They absolutely have to beat Ohio State in order to do so, because the remainder of their schedule is versus Purdue, at Northwestern, and at Maryland, and then you host Ohio State. So granted, yeah, a lot of Michigan fans have been saying, well, we've beaten Ohio State for 4 years in a row. This is still a really good Ohio State team, and it does seem like Ryan Day and company have culturally and in terms of an identity figured out the issues of last season, and they don't seem like they're making those same mistakes this year. I don't think they're walking into the Michigan game this year thinking, that hubris of Ryan Day last year of we're going to be more physical than you. It's like, no, we know exactly who we are. Matt Patricia has done an awesome job with that defense. Brian Hartline, who we were just talking about, has made things really easy for Julian Sayin. That young quarterback continues to get better and better as the season goes on. Offensive line is playing well, etc. USC is the one to me that Lincoln Riley just hasn't really proven it within this conference yet. He hasn't really proven that he can do this at USC, frankly. So I'm not necessarily in love with what USC is able to do. Again, that game on November 15th is going to be critical. But we mentioned Nebraska. USC's at Nebraska on the 1st. They're playing Northwestern, Iowa. They're at Oregon towards the back end of the season, and they play UCLA in the Rose Bowl. So I think UCLA's kind of got a tough stretch here to finish the season, but I'd put my money on Iowa at this point as the 4th best team in the Big Ten.
I don't disagree. But just because I want to have semantics and make the show a little bit longer, I'll push back and say USC. And the reason I say USC is because of offensively, when they are on point, they may have two of the most dangerous receivers in the Big Ten, not named Jeremiah Smith. And I think that they're still able to have a decent enough offensive line to give Jada Maeva time to be able to throw the football downfield. I mean, that's the case. You lose to Notre Dame, nobody's going to sit here and say losing to Notre Dame, even if it wasn't a good performance overall, is that big of a negative. And your only other loss came to Illinois on the road, where you had it until you didn't. So we're talking about this team being maybe a missed field goal away from winning in Champaign and them being a top 15 roster in the Big Ten. I think offense carries. I think offense is a big time factor to where, if you're humming at the right time, there's a lot to buy into of your defense just has to get one critical stop for you to be able to open the floodgates. I think that USC has an offense right now that's top 10 in the country, top 10 on third down efficiency, top 10 in passing with both Mekhi Lemon and what you got with a Jacoby Lane that can make plays in space. I do wonder about the rushing attack. How is it going to look after the bye week? You go face off against Nebraska this weekend on the road, but there's an opportunity for, I think, USC to silence the critics and say to everybody, we are the fourth best team. Because you also mentioned, Tom, that we didn't bring this up, the Iowa versus USC matchup. Iowa plays Oregon. USC also plays Oregon. If one of those losses comes to Oregon, if one of those wins comes over Oregon, to me, that's the common opponent matchup. So let's just say Iowa is able to beat Oregon, but they lose to USC. Let's say that USC beats Oregon and loses to Oregon, but beats Iowa. Maybe at this point you would say, okay, well, you know what? To be able to play against Oregon, shut them down, get them a second loss, by all means, Iowa's a better team. But if USC does it, there you go, common opponent. One team got a win over them, one team didn't. I think that's pretty fair. That's another game to where you can stay. That makes it the fourth team. I think Michigan is clearly, in my opinion, fighting for the fifth spot versus fighting for the fourth spot. I think that that's where it is with Iowa or USC. You're more so in that pecking order. Nebraska's, I think, in the sixth spot. And then, unfortunately, my dear Washington Huskies. Even if you can say that you finished the year off on a high note, because you saw some games that you can probably dismantle opponents and prove that you're better than everybody else. And Damon Williams looked awesome once again against Illinois. Even though it was in Washington, they're a dangerous team. I think that they belong in the ranked. I think they belong ranked. Iowa belongs ranked, by the way, as an SEC elitist. Iowa's the one team that you have to rank, in my opinion, at this point. You can have the conversation about everyone else. Iowa, I think you can rank. Unfortunately, Washington's going to come in at 7.
The college football playoff rankings drop tomorrow night, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I just want to read down the odds to make the college football playoff, which, understanding that a lot of this has to do with who's on your schedule, where you'll be favored, what you've done so far. There's a lot more that plays into it than just looking at the odds and saying, these are the predictions for what's going to happen. For example, Vandy and Texas both have similar odds to make it, but as soon as that game happens, one of those teams will drop drastically. Tennessee and Oklahoma have similar odds to make it. Oklahoma a little bit lower, but as soon as one of those two teams loses, their odds will drop drastically. So you can't take this for like an end-all be-all. Georgia Tech and Louisville have very similar odds. One of those teams is not, like, they're not, the ACC is not getting 3 teams in. Now, could they both make it if Miami stumbles? Sure. Right now, the odds go like this: Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, A&M, Georgia, Oregon. So we've listed 3 Big Ten teams at that point. Notre Dame, Miami, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Vandy, Tennessee, Texas, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Oklahoma. And then 16th is USC, the 4th Big Ten team in 16th right now. Now, I just told you, Vandy and Texas, one of them will cancel each other out this week. Oklahoma and Tennessee, one of them will cancel each other out this week as well, which would put USC up to about 14th, meaning that they're kind of in line. If they win out, they could get in. And so could any of these other teams we're mentioning. Right behind USC by a couple of spots is actually Cincinnati, and then Michigan's right behind Cincinnati. And then you got to go down pretty far to get to Iowa, who has worse odds right now than USF, Duke, and ironically, LSU. So I guess the question, just quickly before we finish this off, will the Big Ten get the 4th team in?
I'm doubting it right now. Honestly, this is not a great year for Big Ten football in the grand scheme of things. The SEC, I think, heard everything from the last 2 years and said, hold my beer. And here's the thing about USC. It's not out of the realm of possibility they lose their last 3 games.
Yep.
Against Iowa, granted at home, at Oregon, and then this is clearly, I know the loss last week to Indiana was brutal. This is a very motivated UCLA team in your rivalry game. And when you're going out, you might not have your interim head coach going into next season. You might have Jerry Neuheisel next season. Maybe he gets some suitors from other places. Does Nico stick around in UCLA? Like, they're going to leave everything out there at the Rose Bowl. So, I mean, if USC goes on a 3-game skid, then Lincoln's probably out of a job. But there's a lot of stuff that could change there. I think Iowa it's always been the case, unless they won the Big Ten West, they lack sex appeal. So I'm not shocked to hear that USC is going to be a team that, in terms of eyeballs and brand, yeah, of course you want to get them into the playoff. More people are going to pay attention to that. Obviously, the high-profile game against Notre Dame. Nobody gets jacked up about Iowa outside of Iowa football fans. But Iowa's a damn good team. I think Iowa deserves to be the 4th best team in the Big Ten. But in terms of who makes the college football playoff right now, I think there's a lot of other SEC teams that you could take that would be better options and would survive multiple rounds.
Wow, not a hypothetical win for the Big Ten from our Big Ten guy. I mean, wow. I mean,
I'm being honest.
And
how many times did I hear that last year? Hypothetical win.
How's the chaos look down the stretch? Does Miami miss the ACC championship, which I think is unlikely now? They still are the odds-on favorite to win it, but they could miss the ACC championship, and the ACC could get 2 teams in. Does Texas Tech miss the Big 12 championship and still get in with just the 1 loss? So there's a lot to be determined there as well. Does Notre Dame slip up and another spot open up because of that? Does absolute SEC carnage happen in the last month that could get things really, really weird? What if Bama loses to Auburn on the Plains or something stupid like that? So we will see. Interesting, though, to look at that. Cole, we chatted about this in the group chat, and it got shut down pretty quickly. But the Sark to NFL rumors are interesting. They survive a 2nd week in a row in overtime against Mississippi State. A pretty thrilling comeback that all of the country hated, minus Texas fans, because it just felt like the little engine that could with Mississippi State. And too many things went wrong. The punt return felt like it was the dagger. But Sark to the NFL, thoughts here?
I mean, I'll just be completely honest. I wasn't upset about Mississippi State finding a way to lose that game, especially with who was standing on the sidelines watching him at Mosley. I'm not gonna name names up here.
I'll name names.
But number 1 media personality in college football who can't talk about college football definitely got his comeuppance against Texas. That is not a good team. Here's what we'll talk about when it comes to the status of the Sark situation. I've heard for years Sark has wanted to make a jump back to the NFL at some point. Now, if Texas had won a national title up to this level, I think that there would definitely be a lot more voices going in that direction, simply because of with recruiting and with the standpoint of Texas being such a dominant job and taking over your livelihood, and him having a young son, and him now, looking up to the next big thing. And he was able to finally bring Texas back to the national dominant level. Yeah, I could see it happening. There's also the standpoint of, well, who's his agent and who is making all the phone calls and all the rounds at this point to make sure that every single one of their clients is getting paid. It's Jimmy Sexton. So Jimmy Sexton's doing his job to say, hey, listen, we would love nothing more than to see another $1 million added to his contract. We're not going to do that. You didn't make the college football playoff. Okay, well, now I'm going to go to the NFL because they're going to pay that price instead. Okay, well, now we can't afford to lose Sark, so we're going to go ahead and pay for him. So it could just be agent talk of putting yourself in a position where you're making sure that your client gets paid the highest dollar amount possible, especially in a cycle where you're going to see Lane get paid a lot of money, and you're going to see someone else from the ACC get paid a lot of money, and there's going to be more jobs that are open on up, which means that Sark's money is going to go down, and he wants to be one of the highest paid head coaches. So that could be the case. The other point is that Sark is one of these people who's very much in love with the idea of him being the play caller. It's something that he has talked about on momentous occasions of, when IK was hired, I was hired because of I was calling plays at Alabama, and that was a selling point for you. And that was something that you thought that I was really, really good at, and I don't want to give up the play calling rights. And there's a lot of people in Austin who are saying at this point, change is necessary to come if you want to stay in a position of relevancy to where we are going to get to the highest level. There's a lot of people out there that believe Sark needs to bring in somebody else to call plays. And if they tell him in the offseason, listen, we're going to give you an extra $1.5 million to go bring in whoever you want as an offense play caller. And he views that as a slap in the face, goes up to an NFL team and says, let me be the play caller. Let me have a say on who the quarterback is. Let me go out and bring in the right personnel members, and I get to bring in the free agents that I like. I'll leave Texas. I'll go right now. I think it's more so the former. I think it's more so he is trying to get a big payday, knowing that there are going to be major jobs available. But I will say there will come a day that Texas does lose Steve Sarkisian to the NFL. I just don't think it's in 2025.
Tom, would anybody in the NFL take him right now?
Yeah, I mean, teams would take him, but you also have to understand that you're maybe number one in pole position in terms of college coaches to jump to the National Football League. So, like, what's available? Do you really want to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans? Or do you want to kind of do what Jim Harbaugh did and you just wait? You just bide your time and you find yourself a good situation like Harbaugh did with the LA Chargers, and look at the success they're having this season. Fit, timing, it all matters. Steve Sarkisian has gone through a lot in his personal life, obviously, to get to the point that he is now, and he's in a good situation. I think he could stick around at Texas for a while, and always having the dangling car keys of the NFL scares athletic directors, often garners more money, longer contract extensions. I also think this Arch Manning situation, he maybe wants to see the end of this and he wants to finish it out. You never know what the conversations have been like with the Manning family and Steve Sarkisian over the years, but you would imagine Arch Manning would want to play for a guy like Sarkisian. Sarkisian would want a guy who's as committed as Arch Manning, even though, yes, it's been an up and down year. Arch is dealing with injuries a lot this season. We've seen so much of that this past weekend. So I think Steve Sarkisian, whether it's an offensive coordinator job or a head coaching job, he's going to garner interest. He's going to be worthwhile. And the thing I always think about now in this modern era of college football with NIL and the transfer portal, and I know there's a lot more changes coming, is it just less of a headache to be a coordinator in the NFL than a head coach in major college football? The answer kind of feels like yes. Yeah. And that you just coach ball and you just work with what you're given for the most part. You don't have to do all this oversight. You don't have to worry about culture and answering these questions every single week. You know, for the most part, you're going to talk to the media, but it's just going to be a different experience. And you don't have to deal with all of the crap that comes with being the CEO of a blue blood program. But I don't know. To me, it feels like Steve Sarkisian's in a good position at Texas. I don't think they're rushing him out the door. So this was good timing by Jimmy Sexton or the NFL or whoever put this out there. But I think he'd be desirable by the National Football League. But all of these college coaches, like there's so many names that went on the open market that people are like, okay, would you see Brian Kelly or James Franklin or somebody go to the National Football League? It's like those are possibilities. But again, like you have to consider the price tag, you have to consider the timing, the job opportunities that are out there. I think the best job, like if Brian Dable goes and you're interested in working with Jackson Dart, there's some excitement there with the Giants and you're in the NFC East. So I don't know. It's wait and see on a lot of these. And that's the other thing we talked about James Franklin getting fired months ago. Brian Kelly just gets let go. Somehow Hugh Freeze hasn't been let go. Mike Norvell hasn't been let go. The longer you wait, the more difficult you're going to make it for your team to try and turn things around for 2026. Penn State has a lead on this as opposed to LSU. Arkansas got to jump on this in the grand scheme of things. UCLA felt like they got to jump on this. You have LSU that's now behind. You're going to have Auburn that's going to be way behind. Florida State, if they do move on from Norvell, they're going to be way behind on this search. So the longer this goes, I feel like it's higher likelihood Sarkisian just stays in Austin.
I will just push back and agree with Tom on one thing. It's Jim Harbaugh. Right situation, perfect fit. That will bring him to the NFL. He's not just taking like a job because of this job available.
Mm-hmm. Can we rank, just really quickly, this is not on the docket, but because Tom just mentioned a bunch of jobs, can you rank the current open jobs and the expected jobs? So throw Auburn and FSU in there. You can throw Kentucky, and if you want to throw South Carolina in there, that's fine too. Don't throw Notre Dame, because unless we really kind of start to think that Freeman might leave. But can you guys rank the open jobs right now? Just 1 through 6 or 7. You don't have to go through down to Colorado State.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it probably.
Go ahead.
1 is LSU, far and away. I don't
Yes.
think it's even close. You can have an argument afterwards with Florida and Penn State. I personally go Florida number 2, Penn State number 3. That's just my stance on it. Number 4, I think, will be Florida State when it does. No, number 4 will be Auburn when it opens on up. It still is Auburn. Auburn has a lot of money. They are not afraid to spend. They always can go big in the transfer portal. They always have top 10 recruiting classes. So 4 is Auburn, 5 is Florida State. I think that makes it clear. After that, then it gets a little bit more conversationalist on what we're looking for. Is Wisconsin going to become available? If Wisconsin becomes available, do you think it's a better job than Arkansas? Do you think it's a better job than Oklahoma State? I would say yes. So if let's just say Wisconsin becomes available, I would put that at 6. Number 7, I would put Arkansas. It still is an SEC job. Number 8, I would put probably NC State. Number 9, I would put Oklahoma State. And if you want to make that switch and say Oklahoma State because of it is a school that did have prominence in the Big 12, you could probably put it there. Number 9, I would say would be NC State if they move off of him. And then if you really want to go a little bit further, we can move some things on up. I think Baylor would actually be at number 7, and it would be the premier job available in the Big 12 because if it's a private institution in the state of Texas that's willing to spend money on NIL, that gives them a slight advantage. And then at number 10, I put Kentucky.
I think you have to consider if Eli Drinkwitz moves on, Mizzou, I think jumps into that top 5. And also, who's the other name? Manny Diaz at Duke. I wouldn't necessarily put that in the top 10, but at least you're in the ACC. That's an intriguing one there.
Jeff Brom at Louisville.
Brom at Louisville. Yeah, like again, that's hovering around 10. Matt Rule, if he bounces, then Nebraska at least has put a good amount of money in there, but how much of that team jumps in the transfer portal? I think Florida, I agree with that being number 2, because if you're inheriting DJ Lagway, that makes you intrigued with what you can do immediately in 2026. Penn State, there's an anticipated drop-off in talent in 2026 that we knew about at the back end of the 2024 season. And the recruiting crater that has already occurred for Penn State is significant. So whoever comes in, yes, you're inheriting a very healthy program, but you're going to have to do a lot of work in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on this. I think in a few years, if FSU's not in the ACC, I probably would slate them ahead of Auburn. Maybe even you'd have a conversation about FSU and Penn State if they were both in the Big Ten and had the same resources. But as today stands, I think I'd have FSU fans will push back there and say that it's a better job than Auburn. But I think you might be splitting hairs there. I think at that point, but because of the SEC ACC thing, I'd have it in the same order, at least that top 5. Georgia Tech is one that again, I think would maybe kind of sneak into some of those conversations. It would be the best ACC job to me if Key left, which I don't think he is. But Georgia Tech would leapfrog everyone else in the ACC besides Florida State, in my opinion. They'd be ahead.
Virginia Tech we didn't even mention. They're like 7 or 8.
Yeah. So interesting. That wasn't on our docket or anything today, but because we were talking about it, I wanted to grab that. All right. This is going to be fun. We haven't done a wild card in a minute. This is kind of like a wild card. We're going to play buy or sell, smash or pass, whatever you want to call this. Cole, we're doing this for the college football playoff, not to win it because everybody, this is a wide open year, but just to make the playoff, contender or pretender, buy or sell, college football playoff edition.
Take a couple names out. Oregon's not going to be on the list. Alabama's not going to be on the list. Texas A&M's not going to be on the list. Ohio State's not going to be on the list. Indiana's not going to be on the list because we expect them to be in the playoff at this point. I think even, and I'll throw Ole Miss at this point out because I think that they're in with their schedule as it is now. Everyone else is available conference by conference. Start off in the wacky wild ACC. Georgia Tech. Pretender or contender?
Absolute contender. They control their own destiny to make it there. They can literally just lose to Georgia and it doesn't matter. So they're definitely a contender. And they may not lose to Georgia, but they're a contender for sure for me.
I agree. Contender. And yeah.
We can flip-flop these. I'll go first on one and then Tom can go because we may agree on some. So Tom you can go first on the next one, then we'll flop back.
Easy contender in my opinion. Virginia, scare against North Carolina, but they did get a win. They're sitting at 7-1.
Virginia? No. No, because again, if the ACC championship game comes down to Miami and Georgia Tech, they're like, we'll take those two, regardless of outcome.
Yeah, pretender for me. They're playing too close lately. They counted on a couple of overtime wins against I mean, Florida State wasn't even a good overtime win at this point. We thought it was when it happened. Almost lost to USC. They beat or UNC. They beat UNC and Washington State by a combined 3 points. Unacceptable. Their schedule's still trash to finish it out. Cal, Wake, Virginia Tech, and Duke. But maybe I'm selling myself because of how bad their schedule is. I think they drop 1 or 2 down the stretch. So pretender for now.
How about the team that they beat in overtime that now has 1 loss on the season? Louisville.
Yeah, my answer before, 2 ACC teams, Georgia Tech, Miami.
I'm going to go, they're a contender for now because of their schedule down the stretch. Yeah. If they beat Clemson and SMU in back-to-back weeks, we're going to look at them differently. They get Clemson at home. SMU just lost to Wake. They do have to go on the road for that one. I'll say they're still a contender as of today.
Contender because they would have the head-to-head over Miami, and if somehow, some way they were able to beat Georgia Tech in Charlotte, guaranteed bid. So right now, I say contender when it comes to Louisville. Last one in the no, we're done in the ACC. Big FSU? 12.
We're going to go the Noles there?
Big 12. BYU 8-0. Back-to-back signature wins. 1 against Iowa State, 1 against Utah in the Holy War. Contender or pretender?
Contender. Yeah, I definitely think contender. And especially with Texas Tech stumbling, down went Will Hammond. So that's going to be tough for Tech to figure out going forward. But they have depth at quarterback, which is great. It feels like, and you guys tell me, it feels like a year where college football in the playoff, they want to establish the Big 12 as legitimate. I feel like that's more of a political thing behind the scenes, and something I was kind of feeling in the offseason is that I was like, hey, it's there's the 3 major conferences everybody is talking about in terms of the SEC and the Big Ten, obviously the Power 2, greatest podcast in the history of college football right here. But then you've got the ACC that everybody's going to have the next discussion about. Okay, who's that 4th? And everybody's like, I guess the Big 12. And I feel like there's going to be a sense to legitimize the Big 12 a little bit more this year. So BYU's playing well. Bachmeier is settled into that offense. They play hard physical football. Like, they should contend.
Yeah, I've got contender. They play Texas Tech after the bye week here, which they get. And their schedule down the stretch is tough. TCU after that, and then Cincinnati. They do finish up with UCF at home. But, I mean, yeah, they could still blow, but they're a contender, man. Bachmeier looked great on Saturday, and they got down early and didn't flinch against Iowa State in route to beating them by 14 on the road. So they're definitely a contender to me.
Can't hate on them that much because, unfortunately, at 8-0 and how they've been able to respond with back-to-back wins over Utah and Iowa State, I think at this point you're a contender. How about a team?
Arizona the week before that on the road in overtime too. 3.
How about a team that they play in 2 weeks? Texas Tech.
I mean, they're still a contender to me.
Yeah.
They go out and beat BYU. They're right back in the middle of things, and they're still ranked highly enough. We'll see what the playoff committee ranks them tomorrow night. But I think, they could miss the Big 12 championship. And if they beat BYU, they won't anyway. But yeah, if they beat BYU, they're right there. I think they're still a contender, but I'm closer to pretender on this because of the quarterback situation. So we'll see what they can do down the stretch.
I say contender, but again, you don't really feel as confident. The other one, Cincinnati. Nobody's talking about.
Tom, what did Tom have for that one?
I say contender for Texas Tech, and then to the point about Cincinnati that Cole was about to make, contender. Cincinnati knows exactly who they are. They play physical. They run the hell out of the football, and Sorsby is just playing confidently. Like, he's not lighting the world off. He's doing exactly what they ask him to do.
As of today, they're a contender, but their schedule down the stretch also brutal in the Big 12. Utah on the road, Arizona, BYU, who we all believe is a contender, and Cincinnati. Cincinnati plays TCU on the road to finish things up. So I honestly don't think they make it, but they are a contender as of today.
I would say contender. Utah. They play Cincinnati this weekend, which for some may be a eliminator from the contender category.
Utah, they're already at 6-2. So then you get into the argument about Houston. What's the rest of their record or their schedule look like for Utah?
Cincinnati this weekend, bye week at Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas to finish things off.
I'd say Contender. That's relatively friendly. That Cincinnati game, I think we've talked about. It feels like that 4-team race of just like who's going to knock each other out, that sort of thing. Just 4 mathematically still viable teams.
I'm going to go Pretender. I don't think they. I'm going to go Pretender. I don't feel great about that because they're kind of in the same situation that other teams are in, where they're still technically alive, but I don't think that I'm going to write them off. Sorry, Utah fans.
Pretender. I'm sorry. I think you just had one too many losses. The Holy War ultimately, I think, is going to dig you in because you're going to finish the year 9-3. Houston is 7-1 underneath Willie Fritz in year 2. They're scheduled to close out the year West Virginia, UCF, TCU, Baylor. Pretender or Contender?
It's a Contender. That's pretty friendly schedule right there.
2 of those games are at home too.
Right. And I've said this before. I think their defense is a little overrated based on the competition that they played. We talked about that earlier on this year. I think if they get into the playoff, it's going to be a quick exit. It's not going to be pretty, but hey, you'll contend. You'll make it in.
Yeah, I'll go Contender at this point. I mean, they control their own destiny. And though I don't, they're going to beat UCF. They're going to beat West Virginia. That will put them up in the rankings. Then they get a bye week before their last 2 games, which again, at TCU and what was the last one? At home against Baylor. I mean, if that happens, they're in the Big 12 championship. If they go 4-0, they are in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think they're a contender at this point since they still control so much of their own destiny.
Contender. I love this Houston team, and it's not just because I live there, and I won't go any further. We got rapid fire through the last ones. That way we don't continue to go on over Iowa. Contender or Pretender?
Contender. I'm the biggest Iowa fan on this podcast, apparently, but I think they're going to be one of these teams that's like right on the edge, and it's going to be the eye test, unfortunately, which is what we're trying to get rid of in college football. So
I'm going to go Pretender, but just to disagree with Tom.
I'm going to go
involved.
I'm going to go Pretender because of I think that they will go 9-3, and 9-3 I don't think can get you in the playoff this year for any team, including the SEC. Just for those asking, Michigan.
Pretender 8-4.
Pretender, and I've been saying 8-4 all year. I was just looking at their schedule. I'm like, they might do 9-3 here to finish the season. Like this Ohio State game, I know a lot of Michigan fans are like, we won't lose to them. It's been 4 straight years, but Michigan could finish 9-3, but to the points Cole just made, right on the fence.
Contender because of until we see them actually lose to Ohio State, they own Ohio State. I mean, like
fair.
10-2 gets you in the playoff, whether or not we believe that you're the best team. USC 5-2.
Because they only have the one conference loss, I'll go Contender for now. I don't know that I have confidence. I mean, just trying to look real quickly at USC schedule. I do think they beat Nebraska. I think they beat Northwestern. The Iowa game is the one that we certainly have to look at the closest. But as of right now, I think they beat UCLA. Oh, Oregon too.
Dude, I was saying it before.
Out of it.
They've already got 2 losses. They can't afford another, and they have 3 losable games to finish the season.
Sorry,
I just think mathematically, like they could finish undefeated, and I'll.
Yeah, but mathematically, I could win a lot
tomorrow. But there's a real strong chance they drop their last 3 games.
Pretender, just because they can drop the last 3 games. Nebraska 6-2.
Pretender.
No way.
Yeah, they're out.
They lost to a team that lost offensively to Iowa. You are a pretender. That is the only way to describe the pretender. And last and certainly not least, because I'm going to throw them in every video that I can, Washington, pretender or contender?
Contender. Yeah, contender.
Have you seen their schedule?
I got to pull it up here. Remind me of it.
It's Oregon the last week. I know that. Just the rivalry.
Oregon, it's Wisconsin, and it's somebody else. I'm blanking off the top of my head.
Wisconsin, they have Purdue, so they'll beat those 2. Are they off this weekend? Yeah, it looks like they're off here on the 1st. And so it's Wisconsin, Purdue, 2 wins there. But then in UCLA, I think they beat UCLA when they're at home in that game. But then they got to go on the road to Eugene. I guess the rivalry does get weird, and Oregon has looked underwhelming at times. But with the second loss, I'm going to go Pretender, but really close, like 49-51. If they beat Oregon, they're close.
Pretender, sadly, but it's the reality. And last but certainly not least, the SEC, Georgia.
Georgia is a contender for sure.
The Georgia Bulldogs?
Yes. I didn't put them in.
Yeah, they'll beat Texas.
That's a contender. Yeah, that's a contender.
They're a contender. They may lose to Georgia Tech, but they won't lose the other game. Vanderbilt.
Contender.
I'll go Contender. They need to win this weekend, and their schedule down the stretch is still very tough with Tennessee on it. Do they play? Who else do they? What's the other tough one? Do they have Oklahoma as well?
No, they have a Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head.
And then a cupcake to finish it out.
No, they're done with their cupcakes. They have Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
I think they'll beat Kentucky and Auburn, although they could be trickier. They can afford to lose one more, right?
Yes, they can afford to lose to Texas or to Tennessee and still be a 10-2.
3-1 down the stretch. I'll take those odds. Give me Contender.
I will also take Contender at this point. They're just too, I think, overall polished as a team to not put themselves in a position where they're going to lose. The team that they beat, Missouri.
Pretender now with Berbula out for a little while.
Yeah, what does Missouri have left? Like, do they get a
have
couple?
Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Mississippi State.
Yeah, they'll split. At best, they'll go 3-1 down the stretch, and that's too many losses. They're out. Contender or Pretender.
I love you, Mizzou. Sorry, guys. Pretender. Gotta say it. Tennessee.
Tennessee's a pretender that might still get in.
Right?
Contender, yeah.
Yeah, they just haven't beaten anybody worth a damn yet. And so, I mean, go beat Florida in the swamp and I'll believe in you. Like that's the ultimate message to Tennessee, which they may go do finally.
They're hosting Oklahoma this weekend, then they host New Mexico State, then they're at Florida, and then they're hosting Vanderbilt to finish the year. I mean,
I think they take one more loss. I like them this weekend. We'll preview that game on Wednesday. I like them this weekend to beat Oklahoma, but between Florida and Vandy, I think they drop one and they're out. So I'm going to say Pretender.
Really, the Oklahoma game is interesting. I think they can score on them, but
Tom, they haven't beaten Florida in the swamp since 2002.
I know, but just
that to me is what makes them the Pretender. Until I see you get past Florida in the swamp,
but like if you lose to a coachless Florida team.
Right.
They've lost to worse Florida teams.
Oh, yeah.
They've lost to way worse Florida teams.
Being a Tennessee fan. Ooh.
2 years ago, they were ranked inside the top 10 and lost to Florida in the swamp. And
Exactly.
Florida, they were terrible.
Exactly.
Not great. Yeah.
Last two, and they have already played each other. Texas.
They're a pretender.
Yeah, pretender.
I don't see them win on the road in Athens.
That's the thing is that they still have to. It's not. They get to play Texas A&M. They get to play against Ole Miss. I mean, against
Georgia and Vandy.
And Georgia.
Yeah, they're going 1-2 in that stretch at best, in my opinion.
Vandy and Pavia are going to be coming for revenge from last year. So that's in Austin. That's going to be interesting.
And last but certainly not least, Oklahoma.
They're a pretender. Mateer's broken. Sorry. Just is what it is.
Yeah, he should not have come back as quickly as he did.
Pretender, but it's just because their schedule. I think if they go 8-4. 8-4 is not getting them.
This schedule is brutal.
Oh yeah, they play Alabama, they play LSU, which again I know LSU has their problems. They play
Alabama, LSU, Mizzou, and Tennessee are their last four.
Now Mizzou, if there's no Perbula, that's a different story. And LSU, does LSU give a shit at that point in the season? The answer might be no, but even still, this could be 2-2.
That's what I'm saying. It's at best, it's at worst 0-4. It's at best, I think 3-1.
Yeah.
And there you go. Contender, Pretender. Oh, one more out there. The United States Naval Academy. That is undefeated and still not ranked by the AP poll.
They're a pretender because they're going to lose to Notre Dame. Sorry, boys.
I will say that you can never count out the United States Naval Academy. As the son of a Marine, November 10th is Marine Corps birthday number 250. So I think the Navy, as long as they're not mathematically eliminated, they're still technically a contender.
Their final 4 games, which is why I had to bring this up. At Notre Dame, at North Texas, at Memphis, home against South Florida. Thank God he got to 8-0, boys, because you're going 8-4.
Yeah, that's not great. Yeah.
Tough. Guys, I texted you guys this too, but I really enjoyed today's show. The game recaps are fine, but when we can go bigger picture, it does seem to be a little bit more fun. The comments were great. And so if you're watching this live, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. We will preview a ton of games on Wednesday, live at noon here on College Football Addiction. But as for myself, TJ Pittinger, Tom Hannifan, and Cole Thompson, we appreciate you guys for tuning into the Power 2. We will see you on Wednesday. Smash the subscribe button on your way out.